Hi, tonight I want to tell you the story of Swinton's pottery, the Rockingham Pottery. I'm stood outside of the fantastic Waterloo kiln, built in 1815 and named after the Battle of Waterloo, which took place in the same year. More about that story afterwards, but really this has got to be a jewel in Swinton's heritage crown, if we can look at it that way. It's like a symbol of Swinton, and really one of our most important historical stories. Products from Rockingham Pottery really put Swinton on the global map. Let's just go back though, because to build a pottery you need nature on your side. You need various elements to make a successful pottery, and we have them all in this area. First of all, you need local clays. You need that raw material that nature provides, and we have local clays in the area which could be used from Swinton Common. There's a wood called Three Corner Wood quite close by. That is actually the remains of a clay pit. Clay pit evidence is also within Cretan Woods. So we've got local clays. You need coal in vast quantities because you need to bake the clay. Again, live in the coalfield area. Coal was gettable from quite near the surface in early bell pits. So we've got the coal. And you also need to think about buildings and building stone. Well, we have quarries in Wath Wood quite close by, which gives seams of good quality sandstone, which you can make the buildings after. You need a lot of water in vast quantities. And close to the site of Pottery Pond is a ridge of sandstone, and in that ridge of sandstone there's lots of natural springs which occur. That's why we've got two ponds here. We've got the famous Pottery Pond, which is actually fed by an underground spring to keep it topped up, and we've also got a smaller pond which we also call the Flint Mill Pond, which is served by yet another spring. The dates of the Swinton pottery are generally put 1745 to 1842. Very complicated story, lots of different individuals involved. Joseph Flint, Edward and Elizabeth Butler, William Malpass, Bingley Co., John Green and Partners, Bingley and Company, and lastly, and certainly by no means least, the Bramell family. They took over from 1806 to 1842 till closure. More about them later. So right back at the very beginning, we've got a local potter called Joseph Flint. He rented lands from the Marquis of Rockingham, whose base was at Wentworth Woodhouse. He developed a local pot and tile works, pretty much probably to serve a local market with simple tableware, simple goods that people needed for their houses and their farms, etc. Sold on and still using the local red and buff clay for the coarse earthenware materials, the coarse earthenware products. We get to about 1765, and by that time the pottery is moving into finer works. It's using materials from further afield. It's bringing them onto site from further afield, and that's when we get the first quality cream-coloured earthenwares, tortoiseshell and glazed wares. The pottery developed so well that it actually became a challenge to the mighty Leeds pottery, and the Leeds pottery was involved with the same people who were partners. And round about 1801, John Bramell, who worked on the site, actually realised that the Leeds interests were going to be closing the Swinton pottery down if they possibly could. There was a decline, and by 1806 on this site the pottery was almost at a standstill. People were out of work, nothing was happening. It looked like the pottery was doomed. But John Bramell took the initiative. He went to see directly the second Earl Fitzwilliam, and the Earl Fitzwilliam advanced £2,000, and to cut a long story short, that enabled John Bramell to get out of the partnership and strike out on his own. And he put up new buildings and invested in some new kit, and we're starting to get a bigger production here on site. And the Bramells continued that move into finer quality earthenwares. They moved on to the willow pattern. There's even still evidence of that. I've just picked up a tiny shard which is just below the surface, and we picked this shard up on the site, which looks the remains of a willow pattern. We'll put it back to where it came from. So we've got the willow patterns, we've got the Don Quixote range, rustic scenes, the grandest tableware even to humble footpaths. By 1819, John Bramell had passed, and Thomas John Wager and George Frederick Bramell, his sons, had taken over the business. They had incredibly high standards, but some business problems, particularly with the Russian market, because the Russian ruble has sank in value, and it left them pretty much high and dry. So the Earl Fitzwilliam, because the pottery was again facing bankruptcy, Earl Fitzwilliam, they knocked on his door again, and he advanced a second bailout, if you like, of money. Now, and that's when they actually named the pottery the Rockingham Pottery, and that was in honour of Earl Fitzwilliam's uncle, the Marquess of Rockingham, the esteemed uncle. It was a compliment, if you like, to the Earl's family. So then porcelain manufacture, the Chinese method of porcelain, started in 1826, and we moved then into world-renowned quality. Hundreds of people were employed on this site. A shop was opened in London, and eventually a royal warrant was achieved in 1830 when King William IV actually ordered his famous dessert service from the site. So let's just have a look at some photographs of how it looked and some of the products which came away from here. So this image is at the pottery really at its zenith. The Waterloo kiln is one of what was 4 kilns on site, and you can see the vastness of the original of the works at its height. Just over there, a private dwelling, is Strawberry Cottage. That was a 3-storey building which was used as a paint shop, and on the top floor was a housing for apprentices, because many apprentices served their time here, and we can look at that shortly. Another image from the past is the 2 gatehouses. These were built in 1815 for security, but also they were used as offices and decorated rooms at one time. There is now only one remaining gatehouse cottage left. The second one was demolished in 1963 when properties were built on Warrenvale Road. It was demolished by Ben Bailey Construction in 1963. Now this is an image after the pottery's closure, and this is the flint mill, what remains of the flint mill. And here we have the Waterloo kiln, the one which we stood outside. At that time it was actually being used as a private dwelling, but that's the remains of the flint mill, which was used for porcelain production. And another view of the flint mill, you can see the shape of the chimney. This is taken around about 1910, when the site was in ruins. But to move to some of the evidence again of the apprenticeships, and people who lived in what is now Strawberry Cottage. They would live on site, probably only go home on a Sunday, and we have a copy here of an indenture which gives details of an apprentice called Liversidge, and it lays down what was expected of him as an apprentice, and also what was expected of the employers, and it's signed by his father Liversidge here, and it's signed by pottery managers as part of the deal. So we move on to some of the fantastic products of the Rockingham Pottery, the rich colours that were employed, the specific flowers painters were here, but usually female painters of fruits. Again, some of the wares which grace the tables of the landed gentry of Europe. We have here a rural scene here on a pot. And the story just goes on. This is an excellent example. It actually shows Wentworth Woodhouse on this. This could have been made for the house, but it does also show the technical skill which was employed on this site. as well as the artistry and the painting and the gilding and the enamelling. Lots of people employed in different trades. They attracted the best artists that they could employ. Again, the flowers by the girl painters usually specialised in the flowers. And again, demonstration of a handled item here, and additions on it with the cast roses, etc. Now this is an example of the magnificent William IV dessert service, which gave the pottery a royal warrant, and this set is still in Buckingham Palace now. The set was used at the coronation of Queen Victoria, and I'm very honoured to say as well that the Rockingham Pottery service was used at the coronation of the present Queen Elizabeth II in 1953. I have been told as well that the Rockingham set was used on a visit by Nelson Mandela, so it is interesting that Nelson Mandela may have dined off pottery made right here in Swinton. So what really went wrong? What sort of caused it all to end? No one can dispute the creativity. No one can dispute the technical skill of the potters that worked here. However, mounting debts continue to increase. The Royal Dessert Service cost an excessive amount of money to achieve perfection. Many lots of pots were actually smashed and destroyed, and hence why the area was covered in shards. And so even the royal warrant brought additional orders, but they were very high quality but of low quantity. So and also the site had too many varieties. The business model was wrong, and it just couldn't pay its way. The Bramell brothers lost heart, and they even began to lose interest as well. And by about 1841, the new Earl Fitzwilliam, he'd had enough. He wanted to call in his debts, and the try to sell the pottery as a going concern. It didn't happen. A major auction was held in 1843 when equipment, fittings and everything else was sold off. A little bit of things remained on site with the flint mill and some small degree of work for quite a number of later years, but actually the pottery was by then finished. The Waterloo Kiln actually is also an interesting history in itself after the pottery. If we can go and look, it actually isn't we call it a kiln, but it is actually the outer structure of a kiln. Is actually called a hovel, and inside, if we look inside, the kiln was a basin itself inside. Now these windows were punched out later because the kiln in later years was actually used as a fever hospital, and it was used as a private house until 1951. But now it's a scheduled ancient monument. But the window certainly would not be here, and the doorway would have been something that would have been sealed off to create that tremendous heat inside. So Rockingham Pottery there. There are just so many wonderful images as well of the products, and it really is worth looking at a few more. Just while we have the time, we'll just whip through some of them quickly. This one is based on Conisbrough Castle. You can see the colours and the designs and the greenware there. Again, that's a fruit dish. Now a very close look at this one. It's a willow style, but it's actually called the Woodman's Return. And we've got a pub in Swinton, the Woodman, which is named after a work of art, the Woodman's Return. So it's a nice little element of history there. Now the marks are a science in themselves, and far too much detail to go in, but essentially the griffin mark represented the period of Rockingham, as I explained. So thank you very much I hope you've enjoyed this series, and I would actually like to thank my son James for his camera work and battling the elements with me during these short films.